Welcome everyone to this episode of Linking the Blogs, the ChainsAtlas podcast. I'm Jan, and today we have a really interesting guest. I'm really glad to have him here, Jonas from Tenity. Hey there, how you doing?
Doing well. Hey, Jan. Great to be here with you guys. Sorry about your losing the phone situation. Hope no.
I needed a new one anyway, so I kind of got,
Okay.
got forced into buying one. It's not too bad in that way, but it's tremendous
Timing,
how much of
right?
our lives are in those things nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to think about that. What I would need to do if my phone got stolen. Too much information on it.
I could tell you. I just went through it. It's a lot. Unfortunately, it's louder here than I expected. I hope it's not too much going through.
Sounds great, actually.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for making the time. We had a little bit of a move from Thursday to today. Um, so sorry for this slightly out of the usual rhythm day today. But I'm sitting here in a lovely cafe, so it's not too bad for me at least. Um, Jonas, maybe you can start telling us a little bit about yourself and particularly what's your journey to where you are now, what you're doing now, and how is it related to blockchain, AI, and so on.
Yes, sure. I mean, now I'm managing partner and VP APAC at Tenity. Um, but the journey has been um probably quite unconventional. But let me start from the beginning. I mean, I'm coming from Switzerland. I got my education there, started my career in Europe, and actually I was trained as a web developer in the first place. Um, was full-time web developer after my training in Switzerland, but always had basically an interest for new cultures, different cultures, different regions. So I managed to go to China, study Chinese in Shanghai for a semester, and afterwards traveled a year for another few months. Coming back, I realized I gotta go to business school, get a degree if I really want to have an international career, and that's what I did. Did a bachelor in international management and economics. And at the back of my studies, I launched my first startup. There was an IoT startup that I launched together with a colleague, and we started basically selling IoT solutions and LED lighting turnkey solutions for industrial applications in 2011 in Switzerland. Perfect timing, really at the beginning of that movement. That was the big trend at the time, and we launched our business. We raised about 1.5 million US dollar and scaled the business to a certain extent, but unfortunately, after 5 years, competition was very fierce. Everything got commoditized, and we had to close down our venture. And I wanted to do something different afterwards. I joined the Swiss Stock Exchange in the IT department. So a bit back to IT where I originally came from, while doing my MBA, which I did in Switzerland as well. And I still had that dream to go and work abroad, and that finally came true after my studies. In 2018, I got a role as deputy head of science, technology, education, and innovation at the Swiss embassy in China. So I was in Beijing for 2 years. Great experience supporting Swiss startups, going to China, supporting research, collaboration. So we did a lot of great work. But after 2 years, I realized I'm better suited in the private sector. And I was fortunate enough that Tenety expanded to Singapore. I knew Tenety from my time at the Swiss Stock Exchange, and luckily um, got this role, and we started in Singapore together with a colleague. And now 5 years in, we have really evolved into a bigger organization with a fund, with a lot of corporate innovation work. Of course, blockchain is a big angle of what we do. We have partnerships with Ripple, for example. And of course, now also as an investor in the technology space, AI is incredibly um, dominant as a topic right now. And even myself have been diving into it via vibe coding again, really leveraging AI wherever I can. But I think in terms of investment, of course, and in terms of corporate innovation, it's really a big theme for us as well. So I mean, I'm kind of now combining my experience of, technical founder, financial services experience, and really also running a platform which frankly the embassy is into Tenety, and I can go into the introduction of Tenety as well if you want me to.
Sure, if it's, and I'm sure it's interesting to some of our audience as well, of our ecosystem, um, to hear a little bit about it. It's from I mean, little advertising from my end. We went through your program, and I can only highly recommend it for startups in the space. It's been great help, and yeah, if you happen to be in Southeast Asia, I think it's a good place. Maybe along those lines, along that introduction, you can also talk a little bit about how Southeast Asia compares to maybe other places you've been before. What are the trends? How do you see the region evolving in terms of startups, in terms of entrepreneurship, particularly? Obviously, we are mostly interested in blockchain and AI here, but also generally.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, kind of the comparison between especially APAC and Europe suits me well because that's where Tenety has its hubs and is located. But very short, we started 10 years ago. Tenety is an early stage investor, a VC. And we are also an open innovation partner for many financial institutions, especially. And yeah, we are really an ecosystem play in the startup space. And we started in Switzerland. We have now offices in Singapore. That's where I am located, and Madrid, Tallinn, London, and Istanbul. And we are a VC. We have a fund when we invest into cohorts of startups. So we are early stage, pre-seed, seed. Fintech, blockchain related is really our core focus. AI as a technology, frankly, like blockchain, is horizontal. So we really look at that also, especially in the context of financial services. And then the second angle or pillar, which is incredibly important to us, is corporate partners. So we are working with the likes of a UBS or the Swiss Stock Exchange, KB Financial Group, Ripple, and we helping them from anything from a hackathon to a startup matching service all the way to actually running an end-to-end accelerator for them. And then the third element, which especially we do quite a bit out of Singapore, is market access programs. That's actually something that we work a lot with governments such as Korean government, Japanese, Italian, Canadian, you name them. We're helping their startups to expand into our regions, and we help them with market validation, customer introductions, as well as investor connections. So that's just in a nutshell what we do. We are about 60 people globally, and of course, like I just outlined, we have a relative big presence in Europe, and then for APAC, we are currently covering it out of Singapore, expanding in the region. So what are the differences that I see? I mean, there frankly quite a lot of differences. I would say, Europe is definitely most of the markets relatively developed, um, whereas in APAC it's much more fragmented. Have a regulatory patchwork that you have to navigate, whereas in Europe you would have pretty much a European regulation, maybe a single license that you need to apply for. Um, But I think what we have here in APAC region, we have a very much mobile first consumer base. We have really leapfrogged, for example, credit cards. Now we all are using our wallets and super apps that combine everything. And also the speed and pragmatism. That's frankly also a reason why I'm really excited and why I came to this part of the world. In the first place, I really like the speed here. Speed is higher, things move faster. You can sign a pilot maybe in weeks and not months. And it really, I would say things really move faster, and you have just really also a lot of access to a younger population, which is usually more technology savvy. So these are just a few of the differences I see. I think in terms of capital depth, I would say nowadays there's really plenty of kind of seed series A money that's available, but that middle layer of like series B, C is quite thin, except China, India, where you have like different pockets of money. But I think we are really still lacking a bit of that venture capital. Also, if you compare it actually globally, of course, the US is like by far the biggest, but European is clearly bigger than Southeast Asia, where I'm located. So, what does that mean for startups? That means for startups that they really need to force kind of early revenue as a focus, and in other places they might be able to keep raising money without f- very much focusing on revenue. Those are few thoughts that I had.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's in line with my own experience, what I've seen. A lot of the companies I feel are a lot more focused on making early revenue, which is not necessarily bad, but it can also distract from what your core business is supposed to be, right? So you might be forced into doing some consulting work, which takes away resources from your actual business. Um, it's a double-edged
Right.
edged
Actually,
sword,
that
I
happens
guess.
quite a lot. Yeah, I've seen that a few times. That's right.
Uh, so talking a
Um,
little bit about, yeah, go ahead, man.
no, I mean, I think those are the kind of the obvious differences, challenges, but there are also a bit less maybe obvious challenges for new entrances if you want to go into that as well.
I couldn't quite hear. It looks like your mic is toggling a bit. I see it's going from listening to speaking all the time. I don't know if there's an issue, but I couldn't hear the last sentence. If you could repeat it, would
Uh
be great.
yeah, I think I'm pressing the button sometimes. Um yeah, I mean these are the no, I just wanted to say those were like kind of the more obvious differences, but there are other challenges that one faces when entering APAC as a market as well. But you are the moderator.
No, that's definitely interesting. So what I would also be interested in is maybe you can give a little alpha to our listeners here that might want to start a startup. So along the same lines, what would be a green flag, and what would maybe be a red flag for you if you see a startup applying for your program, like the most obvious ones, and then yeah, how is that in a local context, uh, or how is that to be seen in a local context? Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do we assess startups as an investor? I think there are many elements that we look at, but I can give you a few of them. So, let's start with the first one, kind of founder market fit. We really look at as an early stage investor, especially, we really look at the founders. What have they done before? What's their personality? Why are they doing this? Do they have credibility in solving for the pain point that their startup is addressing, or is it just kind of a money grab, which frankly we've seen from time to time. If there's a new hype, people will just jump into it and they will launch some kind of a idea startup without frankly really understanding maybe the industry or the pain points to be solved. So kind of the founder market fit is extremely important. Um we are also, I mean, now we are also really looking at, early signs of revenue, or at least early signs of traction. I think the the fact that just a few years ago startups would actually raise money off a pitch deck is absolutely not possible anymore, in my opinion, or it should not be feasible anymore. You need to have some kind of a working product, because frankly, um, especially in the software space, using AI, you can actually build a prototype um, in frankly no time, and with also limited technical skills. So I think, some kind of an early traction confirmation really needs to be there for us in order to write you that first check. Then we also, of course, look at the market. Market size is very important. Are you solving for a very um, niche market? It might be a very interesting project, right? Don't get me wrong, but it might never be a business that can be worth 100 million or $1 billion. And if that's not the case, then the VC is just not the right fit for you, because we are in basically power law is what we need to apply to our investment strategy, meaning we need to see outlier achievements in order for us to return our funds at the multiple. And you only achieve that um, by basically startups growing into a market that is really significant of size. So I think market size is really, really important to us as well. Um, and then, I mean, if we are looking at Southeast Asia, I mean, for Tenity, we, the question is always that we also ask ourselves and the startups, like, why do you want to be part of the Tenity program? What attracted you to our program? How can we add value to you? And I think we've built, and Jan, you know that we've built that ecosystem around, I mean, in APAC, really, of course, out of Singapore um, into the different markets as well. But we have a very strong, of course, corporate network in the financial services space. We had a very strong mentor network of more than 70 mentors supporting our startups. I think it's also important for us to understand, how can we provide value to you so that you can be successful. I think there should also be some kind of an alignment. Um, and maybe just one thing I want to mention as well, what has really changed now with AI. I think what really has changed, in my opinion, is that what's really the mode of a startup now in the age of AI. And in my opinion, there are kind of three factors. Um, Factor number one is distribution. Do you have access, or are you going to be able to really build a big distribution network for your solution? If you're in the B2B space, you might have been working for um I don't know, a SaaS company before, so you have very strong corporate connections. You've done that before, so that's your mode. But I also think data is going to be really, really important. Do you have some kind of proprietary data that allows you to um, outperform the others? And the third element is going to be domain expertise. Are you someone that, again, coming back to founder market fit, are you someone that has um, some deep domain expertise? And why is that? I mean, that has frankly always been important, but I feel like now it's even more important, because in I mean, already now you're seeing it, but I'm sure it gets even crazier in the next few months and years. It's like everyone can build something now, and especially with AI tools like Cursor. You're seeing now people that, and especially SMEs and start, they're like, yeah, we don't need a CRM anymore. We just build it ourselves. And I think that's really something that you need to think about. Is like if you're building something today, how easy is it for someone else to copy my solution? And if the answer is it's extremely easy, then you better think about how how you find a mode to protect yourself from being copied. And I think that's something that has really accelerated now in the age of AI.
Yeah, I find it interesting how the development cycles just go down like every
Mm-hmm.
time you look, basically, with AI evolving more and more. Things
Yeah,
that used to take 6 months now take 6 weeks or less, frankly.
exactly.
And building an app from a like purely technology point of view, I don't think is really advantage anymore in any way if you have it, because it's so easy
Exactly.
to rebuild it. And if it's not something like that has
I
an
agree.
extreme technological advantage in it as a new innovation, some kind of new AI model in it, or but if it used to be that if you build a really good app for what you want to do, that would be already you a few months ahead of whoever wants to copy you. But
Yeah,
now you're maybe a week ahead, maybe two. Uh, so it's not really a
exactly.
competitive advantage anymore. I find that super fascinating to observe. So I think it becomes much more interesting to look either at these tail end solutions of innovation, where you really need to put in a lot of new research and innovation, and which is not something that AI would have seen before and can just easily prompt. Or, yeah, the fundamentals, as you said, have to be there. Like you as a founder have to be so much better than all the others that try, or you have access to a specific kind of data, or
Mm-hmm.
some kind of competitive advantage. I'd see. I guess this becomes a lot more important. But what I wanted to ask you, what I've seen as a trend, um, I'm not a big fan of it, but it makes sense, is that some of the people I talk to, investors, especially on the cutting edge of blockchain and AI, they're looking more and more into solopreneurs than they would have a bit ago, because it's maybe not that huge a multiple anymore, but that guy could spit out 20 applications in a few months, right? And one might stick, and then you could see from there. So actually, I'm running that small startup accelerator in Cambodia, and we
Right.
are partnering with one blockchain. Um, I mean, you know, most of this. We're partnering. Probably it hasn't been signed yet, but it looks good. And they just want to, yeah, put out basically certain grant for wipe coders.
Yeah.
No, it's not a grant actually. There's an equity and token element, but money for wipe coders, give them a salary for a year and see what they can put out. And then the whole training process would be AI based and so on. Um, as I haven't signed, I would, I mean, maybe in one of the next podcasts, I will actually name them. Um, but I found that really fascinating because it was the mantra of the industry for so long. Solopreneurs, no, we need a team. And I get why. But if the lead time and the amount of time you talk to about going to market and having a product is so much shorter, a lot of the risks that usually involved in solopreneurs are gone. So I'd really love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think that debate has now just been um I've heard this debate now for, I would say, like the last 24, 36 months. And personally, at first I also thought, yeah, this is really, we will see lots of solopreneurs now, which will maybe start their first. I mean, we might see the first billion-dollar company coming from a solopreneur. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, frankly, at some point. But um, I think you will still need a team. I still believe in the power of a team. So from an investor's
In full
perspective,
disclosure, I completely agree with you on this one.
yeah,
Just playing devil's
um,
advocate here.
yeah, yeah. So I still believe. I mean, I believe that as a vibe coder, you can spin out like 20 ideas in a few months, and you can see, what catches on and whatnot. And I've seen startup studios, they're not actually solo, but there may be three people, one business, one back end, one front end. Um, and and that's exactly what they do. Every month they basically come up with a new thing, and if by the end of the month it doesn't hit their numbers, they scratch the idea and they start a new thing. So personally, I think this is viable, and that's something that we will see. But I think what's more likely is that we'll just see smaller teams delivering. A team of 10 might be able to deliver something that a team of 50 or 100 has worked on in the past. And I think that's around the corner now. I just saw the
Yeah,
numbers that app loving, that company, they just decreased their FTs significantly while still increasing their revenue. It was a great presentation. I can actually highly recommend everyone to look it up. East meets West. Co2 is hosting annually an incredible um, basically summit, and they talk about private and public markets, and they shared really great numbers there. 100-page deck that they came up with, looking into everything from AI um, to private and public markets, and tech especially. But yeah, also they showed the fact that companies might getting leaner, and also Jensen Huang himself talked about it, and that they might triple in the next few years, but they might only add another 30% of new employees to it, because AI will help them to remain basically productivity goes up. That's I think that's all I want to say. Definitely
yeah.
productivity
I
goes
think
up.
that's the bottom line, really. Yeah.
Yeah, productivity goes up. And you know what was really fascinating? Actually, if you look back at productivity gains in the early internet area, computer area in the 90s, the US had like 5 to 6% GDP growth annually. And they contribute a lot of it to the kind of the computer area. So if you kind of apply the same historical um, you know, experience
Yeah.
fact, then we would
I would argue it
probably
might
see
actually be
similar
more
things.
than that.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. I
now that
agree.
now that AI becomes more and more mature, I think, and I think right now I'd go out on a limb and say that it's not the technology that's the bottleneck here, or the slowing kind of element. It's more that people haven't really managed to adjust to it yet. But once that happens on a big and broad scale, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm German, you're Swiss. Back home, some random
Yeah.
SME that produces some, I don't know, very specific screw that goes into spaceships. Just
Right.
for example's sake, where there are
Yeah.
companies like that, right? Market leader in this very specific thing.
Yes.
But how many of them would really apply AI to the level they probably should? I'd
Yeah.
argue most don't at all still. So I don't think we've
Yeah.
seen most of those gains yet.
Yeah, I think I mentioned you last time, where is actually the biggest opportunity right now? It might be in in these consulting firms that actually help companies to leverage and adopt
Yeah.
AI technology. And I have another example for you. I was
Basically
having
help people replace them. But for a while, it's a
Yeah.
good, really good business. Yeah, yeah, I can see that too.
Well, I guess it's about productivity gain. They might not really need to cut down so much, but they maybe can increase output by
Yeah.
50% or something like that. I mean that's the story I would go in if I would be a
I
consultant.
remember. I remember that must be like 2016, 15. I forgot. But Hong Kong was asking, I think it was KPMG, uh, might be very wrong, but they had this white paper written for Smart City.
Mm.
And that was, I don't know, 20 pages. I forgot. Um, I mean, a lot of information in there. It's a nice piece of work. I know the numbers that were paid for it. I'm not going to say it here, but it was, you could have a good time from it for a long time. Um, that same in more in depth, I get now in 20 minutes just prompting it on Gemini or Grok or whatever deep research model I use. And
Yeah,
that's the kind of productivity gain we are talking about. That took weeks, huge amount of money, and now you get it for like $30 a month in 20 minutes or less.
exactly.
I
I give you
think that
another
shows it
example.
nicely. Yeah, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Actually, I was having lunch with um a quantum researcher, quantum computing researcher. And yes, we talked about the convergence of AI and quantum, but that's not what I want to talk about here. What I want to tell you is like he was telling me that in his research, he's also now um, significantly more productive. He told me that for some of the code that he would write, it would take him like 3 weeks. He can do it now in a day. And he actually feels already that he's the bottleneck in this process. He's telling me that he's using Codex. He would start the task and then go to bed, but then the task was like done after 2 hours or so. And he's like, he gets up in the morning, he realizes it's like he's actually being the bottleneck. And if he, if actually that's probably where the agentic AI will come in, and of course these systems will become smarter and that they can do longer tasks. There's more context window that they can handle, but that we are already getting there in certain circumstances, and I'm actually in particularly excited about the advantage of leveraging AI in research. I think it's not what people talk a lot. I mean, Sam Altman talks about it a lot, to be honest. But the general public doesn't really talk about that so much. But I think we will get in the research space. We will make big leaps in a much shorter time, and that can be from biotechnology to medicine to space sciences. You name it. I would say
Yeah,
hard sciences is important here. Social sciences apparently not so straightforward.
yeah. That's a thing I find really fascinating, and I'm saying that all the time. But like it appears we're evolving in three different components, right? One is technology, which is going at almost light speed, and then there's society, which is evolving constantly at a steady pace. It doesn't seem quite as exponential though. And last but not least is biology, where we barely evolve anymore. I mean, evolution is, well, probably the time components are too short as well, but it's not evident that there's a huge change and shift over time. So basically, we have to cope with a much slower evolving society with rapidly evolving technology, and our society has to cope with our biology basically staying the same. I mean, I just always find that fascinating to observe. But basically, what you're describing is us moving in an exponential curve technologically.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, then we come to singularity theory and all these things, which can be probably would take us another 2 hours to talk about.
Yes.
But
But there are also incredible um advances in um bio biotechnology. I mean, I don't want to talk about the Neuralink as such, but there are other new forms of um, kind of longevity enhancers, and that will create cell renewals and things like that. I think there's also a lot that happens in that space, and usually it's just a highly regulated space. So even though there might be some incredible trials in the works, until it's passed and gone through the regulator, it just takes years, frankly. But definitely, the technology will evolve much faster than we human beings.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, any questions, please do post them on Telegram. Um, I'm sure there's plenty to ask Jonas here. Um, the regulatory part is really interesting. I mean, that's along the lines I just mentioned, right? There is still in so many places no proper regulation for blockchain, crypto. And that's
Yeah.
been around for what, 15 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And AI in the form we know it now, and in the form that all these productivity gains come from, but also all the risks about, I mean, I'm not even going into AI becoming sentient and getting rid of humans. I mean, nobody can know that is not going to happen. Maybe that's a fascinating thing, right? It doesn't even have to be sentient. I'm kind of more worried about an AI not being sentient and just is tasked with some ordinary task and realizes humans just in the way of that task. And
Right.
then not being empathetic, not being sentient, it would just wipe us out. I mean, if it has the means to. And yeah, okay, again, that brings us to a very different debate for a very long time again. So let's not go down that tangent. Um, but yeah, regulation is really interesting. What's your take, especially in Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
In your neck, I mean, we just heard from Singapore going a lot stricter on crypto.
Yeah.
Vietnam is doing the exact opposite. I tell everybody that wants to hear or not. I just paid my coffee with USDT on a local QR in one of the 3 apps or 4 apps that are available. And
Awesome.
funny thing, it didn't even require KYC, which is, I don't know, I was flabbergasted. Um,
Maybe the
so
threshold was too low, which I would
likely,
expect for a coffee.
poss- possibly, I guess there's a spending limit of some sort. I didn't hit that with the $4 I paid for the coffee, which is over. Actually, I paid more for the water on the airport. Um, that was apparently 4.1 USDT, and for the coffee was 4 USDT. But yeah, but I was in Evian, so probably I should not complain
Right.
being fancier like that. But I was the only one available in my defense. Yeah, what's your take on the regulatory situation in these emerging industries and technologies in the region?
Yeah, it is fascinating actually how things have evolved, and um it is kind of a competition, and that is happening between the countries, and I think it's a healthy competition. So we had Singapore being kind of at the forefront for quite some time, and then you had Hong Kong really also opening up, licensing a lot of exchanges. Um, you mentioned Vietnam now, exactly. Then also with the new president in Korea, we are seeing opportunities there, that things might also shift towards more crypto friendly regulator here. So I think things are evolving. I think it's kind of it's a natural thing that occurs because companies start to not companies, governments start to realize the importance of regulation, and of course also the ever growing opportunity of blockchain technology and what the advantages it brings with it. I mean, I think especially now the topic around stablecoin is a big one. And frankly, who is still holding back is probably the incumbents and the lobby groups that are backing the incumbents. I was just listening to an interesting conversation regarding the US the stablecoin, the Genius bill that is getting passed or got passed. Why, for example, are yield bearing stable coins not allowed yet, and it's just stable coins, but actually the yield is paid out in different ways. For example, rewards. If you are a node in that network, you will actually get partially refunded through rewards. And there are like different ways around it, but definitely yield bearing stable coins as such is not yet in here. And why is that? And it's probably because the traditional financial institutions are being, I would really be
No, that's the case. I don't think we need to beat around the bush. I completely agree.
right.
I think that's plain out what it is.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, I
I
just
think
had this
what's
discussion here in Cambodia
uh,
as well. What holds back regulation? Big part.
yeah,
Big important players are owning banks, right? It's simple as that.
exactly. I mean, and let's be honest, right? If you're holding your cash now um in an emerging market bank where you have annual inflation of 15%, and you could actually hold it in USDC, and you could, or in a US dollar backed stablecoin, and you could actually even earn a 5% yield on it. Um, how difficult is this decision to make, whether you move that money into a yield bearing kind of stablecoin product, or you keep it in your local currency? And I think, but there is of course a threat, right? And that's of course where you do see a pushback, um, and that's where regulation, of course, is kind of playing its role. And I mean but I mean that's frankly that's um a serious consideration for every regulator to consider, right? Are you going to devaluate your currency now by opening this all up? So that's why it will take time. It's not they're not just going to open up the floodgates for all these service providers to come in. They will just go slowly, and they will see what's the effect on the economy. And of course they also want to make sure that no bad actors are coming in and basically rug pulling
Yeah, yeah.
the people.
That
So
it's
I think it's just
obviously.
regulation is slow, but I think once someone moves, the other ones have to move as well. And I mean, on a global scale, the kind of the US is really important how the US regulator sees new technologies in the blockchain space now,
Yeah.
what they're doing, because that will drive adoption on a global scale
So we are putting our
and
trust in
give
the
a bump.
reliability of Donald Trump's policies. Oh my God.
I'm not sure, but at least he has the crypto czar David Sachs that looks after after this topic.
No, in all fairness, there have been really interesting moves on the US side. A lot of it does make sense. Um, but yeah, it's been a little bit volatile. Let's put it that way. Like a year ago, they were
Absolutely.
cracking down on everyone. Now it's the opposite, where basically obvious scams were just basically allowed to happen. Not
Yeah,
naming anyone particularly, but it's interesting.
indeed.
Okay, we are reaching the hour mark slowly. You open to answer a few questions from the audience.
Of course.
Let me start. Plent is asking, what are some of the biggest early stage challenges faced by startups in Asia, and how do successful founders typically overcome them?
Um, they're different. There's so many. Biggest ones. I would say, if you're coming from outside, for example, one of the biggest challenge for you will be average revenue per user, the ARPU, is just way lower what you're maybe used to in the US or in Europe. So actually, to make money, you will need to really build something that is lean, cost efficient, and you need to just have a much bigger user base. Regulation, definitely. Languages, like, I mean, we just did talk about that, but it's not, people that think about Asia as like one big homogeneous place. Please don't, because it's absolutely not like that. So you have two big places, China, India, huge markets, also highly competitive. Um, if you want to enter those, then yeah, good luck. This is really, really brutal, and very competitive. And then you have other markets which also um, are, I mean, you have Indonesia is relatively big, but then the other markets are just smaller, and you need to look at kind of a regional strategy, but that comes with complexity in terms of regulation, in terms of languages, in terms of infrastructure. Everything is different. So these are these are just really all challenges that you will face in Asia, and best way to prepare for that is actually to, ideally you have been in this region, or you get an experienced advisor on board, or just to talk my book, you join an accelerator. But no, frankly, this I think does help, because we can provide you an ecosystem, a support crew that helps you to navigate those difficult first inroads
So
into a
if
new
I were
market.
to apply, to your program, I would
Exactly.
find the application link on your website, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Correct.
happy to put out a
Tenity.com.
link
Yeah.
after this, and then I think again, I personally can pledge for it, or vouch for it. I've been going through it. It does bring value, and the deal is extremely fair compared to a lot of accelerators. That is for the traditional fintech program, but there are also others with blockchains and other institutions which partially are grant money. So just go on the website, check it out. There's a lot of really interesting options, and it
Indeed.
does help navigate in early stages. Um, One for me, XJax. What inspired ChainsAtlas to focus on this region, and how has your approach evolved since inception? Um, Frankly, at the time there was no proper regulation in Europe. America sounded ludicrous to go to for the reasons I just named. So we were doing research on good places to start a decentralized blockchain project that don't sound too scammy, like Cayman Islands or whatever. And our three eventual options were Dubai, Hong Kong, and Singapore. At the time, Hong Kong was in a process of probably pivoting, but I think they haven't yet. They were still quite difficult. Singapore was quite open as long as you don't do um, custody of funds for others, like run an exchange or whatever. They were very open to technologies, and we are very much a technology company, first and foremost. So yeah, that was the decision. We are a very decentralized remote team, so it didn't really matter for us where the incorporation really takes place. I'm personally very familiar with Asia. That's the background. But in the end, our offering is decentralized. We are building a layer one blockchain, and we're looking for adoption worldwide, not only in Asia. But those were the reasons. Um,
By the way,
Another one.
fun
Yeah, go ahead.
fact, fun fact to add here. Just spoke with the general manager for APAC of Grok with a Q, and he mentioned half of their developers are actually in Asia. So maybe interesting
Yeah,
for people to know there's a lot of developer talent in this region.
that is the other part. There's a lot of very intelligent, technically capable people. Like Vietnam is basically a lot of the rise of Vietnam was based around development, technology. Um, yeah, it's not all just production and natural reserves. Obviously, that is, or resources rather. That's a big part of the economy here. But technology, there are a lot of smart people. So Um, Maybe one or two more for you, if that's all right. Um, are there any sectors in Asia where Web3 startups are gaining significant traction? For example, finance, gaming, sustainability.
Um, Significant traction. I mean, to be honest, what I'm seeing right now is, for example, in Asia, you still have um, it amazes me, frankly, how much money is invested into payment infrastructure, and now especially also linked to crypto rails. And there's so much yet to be built out. I think that's where you will still see, frankly, the bulk of the money to be invested in this part of the world. So that's one, and right now with it comes also these yield bearing products. I mean, this is of course I'm a bit biased because I'm more linked to financial services, but I think that's in general a use case that people are looking now also to earning yield on their crypto holdings. So there are quite some exciting new protocols and RWA um, solutions that are coming out, which I think will still take quite the bulk of the investments. I think gaming died down a little bit, although this part of the world still has, frankly, gambling as a as a big topic. There are some great startups in that space, but that's not something we would be looking into as an investor. But that's definitely
Yeah,
still
I have a
happening
nice
here.
story about my startup experience in Macau, but given the
For
time,
another
I'm not going there.
podcast.
So yeah, yeah. I think you need to come back, Jonas. I think we have
Okay.
plenty of topics. Um, I would have one last one for you, and then I do one for myself, if that's all right. And then I think we are
Mm-hmm.
good. How is the VC and angel is from Plant again? How is the VC and angel investment landscape evolving across Asia? And which regions or industries are getting the most attention right now?
Yeah, great question. I mean, on the one hand, we are um, also, of course, here following some global trends. Like I said before, AI as a topic is now taking like a large chunk of all the VC funding, whether that's in the Silicon Valley or here. I think that's not a surprise. But um, what I'm seeing more is actually we have definitely still more kind of angel stage seed early stage investors that are willing to invest, and I think we see even more and more of that. What really created the Silicon Valley ecosystem was just decades of I mean, they started in the 60s, right? But basically what happened was that once someone successfully exited their business, they had money, and they put it back into other founders that they believed in. And it's more, you actually, especially for technology startups, you need sometimes crazy people that believe in crazy ideas. Whereas traditionally in, this part of the world, still most of the wealthy families, they made their money, frankly, through real estate or or maybe natural resources. But a lot of money has been made in real estate, and their mindset shift is obviously hard to achieve, and I think it takes a generation or two to really change that mindset. It's happening slowly but steadily. But I think what will really drive more venture funding into technology will be the fact that we have successful exits in this part of the world, and these people will then angel or early stage invest and set up their own funds, and that's slowly but steadily happening. But to build an ecosystem, VC ecosystem, it probably takes decades and not just years. Just a thought.
Awesome. Thanks. There was one last one which I have to ask you before I let you go.
Sure.
What are you, it's for both of us, basically, but what are you guys most excited about for the future of innovation in this region? I think I have an idea, but
Go
I'll
ahead.
let you answer.
I'll let you
For
I
me,
want to answer after you. You already had time to think about it.
it's we talked about the fractionalization kind of the region. There's no common regulation, no common real policy body. So I think that, especially in the payment sector, stable coins and blockchain will be very, very relevant in the future. Trade within the region, and all these regulations are an amazing field for AI to solve a lot of these issues, especially when you have such a divergence in development state of the economies. Like you have Singapore, which is very much on par with the first world as it's traditionally defined, probably in a better state than some places there. And then you have places like Cambodia or Laos, which are not, um, and very much on a very relatively early stage of development in terms of the economic setup, which enables access to capital through those more evolved regions, but also a playing field to leapfrog with new technology. And I think AI and, to a degree, blockchain, I think that combination, obviously, I mean, I have to say that, but I truly believe it, that combination will play a big role in it. I think that's, and fintech is a big part, I think, in that region, but I can see a lot of other fields as well. That's a way too long answer to the question, but there you have it.
Yes, I think, I mean, I agree with you. What I want to add here is that what I'm excited about is the still young population in this part of the world. Well, I think you told me what's the average age in in Cambodia? It's very young. I forgot. But I mean,
I think the median age is somewhere 25-ish. It's very young, yeah.
exactly. So very young population. And now if you combine this with AI, and I don't know how you guys are, but I personally I really leverage OpenAI for ChatGTP a lot to learn new things, to upskill myself. I think there's actually a huge opportunity with the young populations that are now
Mm.
kind of growing up like AI native, the digital natives, which we were maybe on. Now is the next generation is going to be the AI native ones. I'm actually very bullish for that next generation to grow up because they grow up with this and they've not seen anything else. So I think they are going to be a great pool of talent to be building. Um, and furthermore, if you look more imminent, I think I'm still very excited about the potential build out of new infrastructure, leapfrogging technologies here. Like I said earlier, cards never really arrived. It was just a wallet and super apps, and I think we will see again. I don't know if that term is really yet being used, but kind of AI native infrastructure that can be built. Um, I'm very bullish about that because I think um, there's so much of the emerging markets here that need to catch up, and I think they will be able to catch up again by leveraging technology, and AI will be a huge enabler here.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, to be honest. We are already over the hour mark now, so I think that's a nice. Those are quite nice lines to wrap it up with. I think there's a lot of potential over here, as there is around the world, given the technologies as they evolve. Jonas, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for doing this and hanging around even beyond the time. It's really, truly appreciated. And yeah,
Thank you.
looks like
Appreciate
in a
it to
few
have me
months we
on.
need to do this again.
Sounds good. Yeah, things evolve so quickly.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, Jan and team.
maybe at the time I'll be replaced by an AI.
And we wouldn't even know.
We wouldn't. Maybe I am.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay.
Great.
Awesome, Jonas. Talk to you again soon.
Likewise, have a
Uh,
great Sunday, everyone.
who we will be talking to then. But we'll post it very soon. And I'm sure it's going to be an amazing conversation like the one today again. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful weekend. And thanks for tuning in, even on a Sunday. I know you guys probably would rather go out, do something great. Thanks for being here, and talk to you soon again.